Hey, you guys, welcome back to Racket City Yardstead. So, today is the day before Thanksgiving, and I've been running around a little bit like a chicken with my head cut off, just so many little things that had to be done. But one of the things I really wanted to get done today to help make tomorrow less hectic is making our dessert for Thanksgiving. So, normally we make pumpkin custard and ramekins, basically crustless pumpkin pie. But Thanksgiving is really late this year. I don't know if you guys know, I actually looked it up this year, and the 28th is the latest day that Thanksgiving can be. So, because of that, my birthday is only about a week after Thanksgiving. And so we decided we were going to make carrot cake, and it's going to sort of serve double duty for us. We're going to stick part of the cake in the freezer and pull it out next week and have carrot cake for my birthday as well. But there's one thing I wanted to address before we get to making this cake, and that is that the website this is from is a website called Sally's Baking Addiction. So good. I've made multiple recipes from this website, and they're just fantastic. But they're written for conventional baking, all-purpose flour. They're not gluten-free. So I have substituted very successfully in these recipes the Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 baking flour and also the King Arthur baking flour that's a 1-to-1 substitute. And it just comes out perfectly. My gluten loving and eating family members, they love this cake. So let's get to making our cake. The first thing we need to do is get our dry ingredients all mixed up. So I have a bowl for that, and I have my scale, because the one thing on this recipe that gives us a weighted measurement is the flour. And especially with gluten-free flour, I find weighing it to just be a lot easier, making sure you're getting the right amount. So it calls for 312 grams. Got a little bit extra. Here we go. Okay. Now we need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. My baking powder's gotten all clumpy. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Half a teaspoon of salt. 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. I may add just a smidge extra. And then half a teaspoon of, we do not want, this would not make our cake taste good. We need half a teaspoon of cloves, half a teaspoon of nutmeg, and half a teaspoon of ginger. In the past, when I had pie spice, I just used pie spice and added up all of the various ingredients, measurements, and that's how much pie spice I put in. Now we can get to working on our wet ingredients. So I am making a substitution here and using coconut sugar instead of brown sugar, and it calls for 1.25 cups of brown sugar. Ooh. Cup and 1/4. It also calls for 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. If you've been around, you know I normally use coconut sugar in place of cane sugar most of the time. this in the whole of the cake is not a ton, and so I'm going to go ahead and use my organic cane sugar here. All right, now we need a cup of oil. The original recipe calls for canola, but I'm using avocado, and really any light flavored oil is going to work. I've even in the past used like an extra light olive oil, and it's been fine. So just don't use extra virgin olive oil, because then you're going to have an olive oil flavored cake. Here's our oil. Now we need 4 eggs. I did want to show you guys. I forgot to pull my eggs out early, and this called for room temperature eggs. And so I just put my eggs in some warm water to warm them up a little bit. I'm actually going to drain the water out. And then I can use this bowl to put my shells back in. Here's our eggs. I'm going to get my hands washed up, and then we'll add more. My hands are all clean now, so now we're going to add our vanilla. We need 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I normally go a little heavy on the vanilla. There are some extracts you can't do that with, but as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of hard to have too much vanilla. And then I did some work ahead of time and shredded up my carrots. I had the biggest carrot I've ever seen today. It actually made 1.5 cups of my 2 cups of carrots. I think normally when I make this recipe, I end up needing like 5 or 6 carrots. And then we need pineapple. I have crushed pineapple here. This is about 1 cup of pineapple, and I squeezed as much juice out of it as I could. And then the recipe does call for 1 cup of walnuts. I'm sure if you like nuts or you can eat nuts, that's delicious. We have family who doesn't really care for nuts, and I don't tolerate them well. So we just leave it out, and the cake is wonderful just as it is without them. But if you like nuts, add them. And I'm sure if you would prefer something like pecans or, just put your favorite nut in. It doesn't have to be walnuts. So I am going to get all of these wet ingredients mixed together. And then we're going to mix it into our dry ingredients. Now that I've got my wet ingredients all mixed up, we're going to pour them straight into our dry ingredients. We just want to mix this up until everything is well incorporated. That's one thing I have to say is easier about gluten-free baking. Maybe the only thing that's easier, really, is that you don't have to worry so much about over-mixing your cake, because there's no gluten to develop where you might end up with a chewy cake. This is all mixed up and ready for our cake pans. Before we put our cake batter in, I want to get some parchment paper cut for putting in the bottom of my cake pans. So I know that there are all kinds of different ways people do this. I'm terrible at all of them that I have tried. I've seen where people fold the paper somehow and then cut it and unfold it, and it's a perfect circle. I'm terrible at that. So I just trace with a pencil with my cake pan and then cut a little bit inside my circle so I don't have that lead in my pan with my cake. And that works pretty well for me. But I always want to try the methods that I see other people do. I just can't quite figure them out. So this is gonna have to work for me. And it doesn't have to be perfect. The whole goal is for it to help our cake come out of the pan better, and a wonky circle still helps the cake come out of the pan well. All right. Okay, that's gonna work for me. So I'm just gonna spray my pan with some oil, get it smeared around good. Put my parchment paper in the bottom. I got this oily enough, I can probably just flip this parchment paper over. And both sides will be oiled really nicely. Yep. So one pan done, and I'm gonna move on to the next. Now that our pans are all greased up, we're just gonna try and evenly divide our cake batter between the two. If I'm feeling extra industrious, I will pull my scale out sometimes and measure to make sure they weigh the same. But eyeballing works just fine. And if one ends up a little bit thicker, we'll cover that up with frosting anyway. My oven is preheated to 350. And for a 2-layer cake, this is gonna bake for 30 to 35 minutes. So I will check it at 30 minutes with a toothpick and see if they come out clean. And if it needs a little bit more time, we'll let it have it. Our 30 minutes is up, so let's see if our cakes are done. It came out pretty clean. Ooh, they feel done. Let's check the second one. Yeah, I think these guys are ready to come out. I'm gonna let these cool for about 15 minutes, and then I'll flip them out of their tins and let them cool completely. So this has absolutely nothing to do with the cake, except for the fact that I did it while the cake was cooking. I fixed our dinner for the night, and I was looking through my pantry, looking for something that was quick and easy to throw together just because I needed a win for the night. And I had bought a box of gluten-free stuffing from Trader Joe's to try. And so it only said it took about 10 minutes to fix. And I thought that's going to work great for me because I had a rotisserie chicken in the refrigerator. So I made the stuffing, I heated up the chicken, I threw together a quick gravy. We had leftover sweet kale salad from a salad kit from Sam's Club. I looked at my plate and I thought I should open a can of cranberry sauce, which I had canned from last year. And you guys, it's basically Thanksgiving dinner. I think sometimes when we just need a break, it's okay to make things simple on ourselves. And this would be a fantastic Thanksgiving dinner that took me 15 minutes to make tonight. So if you need somebody to tell you it's okay to take shortcuts on a holiday, go right ahead. Tomorrow, this is not what we're having, but tonight we'll have maybe a slightly more traditional Thanksgiving dinner. There you go. These have been cooling for a good 10 to 15 minutes. I'm just gonna run a knife around the edge. My pans are still pretty hot. There we go. I'm gonna flip these out onto my cooling rack. There we go. One cake out. 2 cakes. With that parchment paper, they just come out perfectly. So I am going to let these cool completely. I'm going to wrap them up in saran wrap tonight, and then I'm actually going to freeze them because it's easier to frost the cake frozen. So tomorrow morning we'll come back, pull them out of the freezer, and we'll frost our cake. Good morning, you guys. So time to finish our cake off. I am going to make cream cheese frosting here. I am using the lactose-free cream cheese from Trader Joe's because Trader Joe's is by far the best price on lactose-free cream cheese if you need that, by the way. But we're going to add 2 8-ounce containers of cream cheese. I've had these sitting out here on the counter softening for a bit. And we're also going to add a stick of butter. I forgot to soften this, so I'm very lucky and my microwave has a soften feature on it. So I softened it up in the microwave. We're just going to get these things creaming together. Do want to give my bowl a scrape down so we make sure that cream cheese and butter is mixing really thoroughly together. Our butter and cream cheese are really nice and light and fluffy and mixed well together. So I am going to add a pinch of salt, a tablespoon of vanilla. I'm eyeballing here. And let that mix in for just a second, and then we'll start adding our powdered sugar. I will tell you all, I typically find the amount of sugar called for in cream cheese frosting, or really any frosting for that matter, just way too sweet for my liking. And so I normally just add it until it tastes right and the texture looks good on the cream cheese. This recipe called for about 4 to 4.5 cups of powdered sugar. And I can tell you right now, that will be way too sweet for me. So we'll start with what I have in this bowl because this is homemade powdered sugar, and add more if I need more. But let me get a measuring cup out here so we know exactly how much I end up adding. I'm pretty sure I am going to need more than what I've got here. So we'll just have to make some more up. I think we're going to end up starting with about 1.5 cups. I'm just going to use my finger and give it a little test. It definitely needs a little bit more. So I'm going to have to make some more powdered sugar. If you've never made homemade powdered sugar before, it could not be more simple. As long as you have a high-powered blender, you literally just need to stick granulated sugar in it and blend it up. Store-bought powdered sugar normally it has cornstarch in it. If you buy organic, it might have tapioca or arrowroot. I'm adding just a little bit of tapioca to mine because it helps act as a stabilizer in your powdered sugar. And my understanding is that the main purposes of that is for this very thing, like where we're making a frosting and it helps your frosting hold. So let's make our powdered sugar. I have learned through experience that I need to let this sit for a minute because there is a whole cloud of powdered sugar in there at the moment, and it needs a little bit of time to settle, or else you'll end up with a powdered sugar dust cloud in your house. But here we go. Perfect powdered sugar. Now that we've got more powdered sugar made, I'm gonna get it into our frosting. I'm starting with another half a cup, so that'll put us up to 2 cups. I'm guessing I'm gonna want somewhere around 2.5 cups total. Okay, so I'm gonna give this a taste test just to make sure. For me, 2.5 cups of powdered sugar is definitely enough. I can't imagine adding another 2 cups to that. So here I've got my 2 layers of frozen cake. I am going to add a little dollop of our frosting here onto my cake tray. I don't really know what this is called. It's not really a stand. It has a lid. I'm pretty sure that this thing is older than me actually, but it comes in really handy when we want to make cakes. So just get our cake unwrapped. And get a layer of this onto our tray. Now, I will tell you, my cakes are a little bit rounded, and I don't mind that. I'm not making cakes for some kind of competition or beauty pageant. And frankly, I am not the greatest cake decorator in the world. But we do want a nice layer of frosting here in the middle. We'll see how this goes. I just got this offset spatula yesterday. I've been wanting one for years. Every time I make a cake, I'm like, I need to get an offset spatula. And the truth is, I only make cakes maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And so I kind of forget about it until the next cake. But yesterday, I decided I really wanted one. And so I went to Walmart. I always refer to it as Big Walmart because we have a Walmart neighborhood market close to our house. But I walked into the super center, the big Walmart, and right there in the walkway as you entered, they had a whole display of baking utensils that was holiday themed. I think it said holiday time on the tag. And this offset spatula was $2. And it's probably a little on the flimsier side, but for somebody who's baking as rarely as I am, kind of a perfect thing. You don't have to spend a fortune on something you're not going to use very often. So if you need an offset spatula, here at Christmas and Thanksgiving is the time to get you one. Go to Walmart and get a $2 spatula. My cakes got a little bent in the freezer, I think. My freezer's pretty full. It's full of tomatoes and all kinds of things. So I had to do quite the shuffle to get these in there yesterday. But it's going to taste good, even if it looks a little wonky. So a little bit of an abrupt change here. My memory card got full while I was frosting the cake and I didn't realize. So the camera cut off. But here's our cake. It's all nice and frosted. This is, let's go with rustic. It's sort of got that naked cake look to it. You can see the cake poking through. And honestly, I like it like that just because too much frosting is a little bit icky to me. But you didn't really need to watch me frost this anyway because I am not some master cake froster. cake decorator. There are plenty of people you can watch for that. I am just show you that it's an easy cake to make and it's delicious. So because we froze this last night, I'll be able to leave it out on the counter today and it'll defrost. And by the time we want some cake this evening after our Thanksgiving dinner, it'll be all ready for us. So I will bring you guys back then and we can give it a taste test. It is significantly later in the day, you guys, and we had a great Thanksgiving dinner. Now it's time to cut into our cake. So try not to squish it too much. I do find gluten-free cakes tend to be more crumbly in nature. That's just state of things. But look at this beautiful cake. So here we have it. And yes, I have frosting on my finger, so I'm gonna lick it off. But look at this beautiful cake. It's just full of color and it smells wonderful with all of those spices. So get a bite. You guys, it's hard to beat this cake. It really is just so good with all of that pineapple and the carrots and all of those spices. It's just so moist. That tang from the cream cheese balances things so well. If you love carrot cake, this one is such a winner. I just have been making it for years at this point now, and it never fails me. So I hope if you love carrot cake, you'll give it a try. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you have had a wonderful holiday season so far. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.